So good morning again, and I'm delighted to introduce to everyone Salvador Coleman, who has just last week become the project manager of Habitat, which is the name of our farming project global grant with Rotary. And with him today is Elizabeth Padilla, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Who is also instrumental in this program and has worked with us in the development of the grant over the past, gosh, it's been almost 18 months since we first began talking about it. So I'm very excited to ask the two of you some of the basic questions about this project and how it came to be. So let me just start with the obvious. What is this project? What does it do?
Well, first of all, I'm very excited to be part of this project. We will be working with 100 small-scale farmers, and supporting them getting back on their feet in order to recover their farms. We had a lot of young farmers who are getting back into the land in Puerto Rico. Some of them are more experienced, some of them are starting to farm with a lot of enthusiasm. So we will give them support through education, technical assistance, giving them, helping them in establish links with markets, and a whole range of areas that you need to work with in order to be successful in farming.
Right. Now you mentioned, Salvador, 100 farmers. Is that the goal or the absolute?
That's we'll be working with with a lot of detail and material support with 40 farmers, but in education we'll be exceeding the expectations of 100 farmers.
Very good. And as I understand it, this project, and I think you just touched on it, goes well beyond but goes well beyond farming into community aspects of cooking, distribution. Is that correct?
Correct. We will be working with farmers and also with communities so what we need to understand is that communities being part of their that we need to understand is that communities are such an important part of agriculture, and in order for communities to be able to plant in any scale they can and be able to manage those foods to get better nutrition. In Puerto Rico we have a challenge because of we've been changing our diet, and that diet has been making us sick. So there's a challenge in order to people to get back into using local foods, and that's part of the project. We'll be working with the communities through the community kitchen program.
Very good. Now, and I know this is a long story, so we have to try to make it somewhat brief here, but the history of farming and agriculture in Puerto Rico is a long one. Certainly hundreds of years ago, there was agriculture here. And then something changed, and could you kind of briefly walk us through why agriculture died? And it died long before the storms, but then what happened with the storms that brought this to a crisis moment now?
So Puerto Rico had for centuries an agricultural economy, but in the 1950s, there was like a shift toward an industrial economy, and there wasn't really a balance between agriculture and industry. It was substituted. So now we went through a couple of decades in which we lost our agrarian base, and we've been importing 90 to 95% of our food products. And now in this last the last 10 years, or maybe even less, there has been a huge influx, a huge enthusiasm for getting back into farming, and that was really what was happening when Hurricane Maria came, and it destroyed farming in Puerto Rico. So now we're getting back on our feet, and we also believe that it's not only about producing food, but also the model by which we'll be producing that food that's economically viable, that social justice in the model, and that there's a protection of the environment, because we only have an island and we need to protect it.
Very good. Now, as I've come to learn, and I'm hoping you can expand on this, first of all, this project is part of a new division at Para la Naturaleza called Habitat. And many of us around the world, when we think of Habitat, we think of course, Habitat for Humanity, where they're building homes and houses. There's a very clear reason, however, that this was also called Habitat. It was, I think, came out of the storm experience and a desire to help people to work with the land in harmony rather than almost trying to fight it. Is that fair? Is that a correct assessment?
Well, Habitat is our new unit in the organization that help to us in the restoring our ecological sites through planting trees, through working with the community, through educational programs. The Habitat is that place where we are living, and then we protect it in all the manner as possible, and that is habitat for us. And part of that habitat also is the farmer, the agroecological people that planting our food. As Salvador mentioned, after the Hurricane Maria, we saw how we lost many of the opportunity to find food in that time of crisis. And now it's very important how to see that the people is rescued again, coming again to work with the land as a farmer. And Habitat is all of that components. And for us, it's our new unit that move how we can protect our lands and how the people can integrate to protecting that ecosystem, that lands, including a farming lands.
Very good. Now, when I think of farming, there are different kinds of farms. There's what I guess I would say I see most often in the United States, which involves large machinery, lots of pesticides and fertilizers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other extreme of that would be organic, strictly organic farming.
Mm-hmm.
What we are describing here is a little bit more in the middle. Can you explain how this specific kind of farming will happen?
Yes, as you well said, there's different models to farming, and in Puerto Rico in particular, like most of the farms are small farms, are farms from 5 to 20 acres, and that model of industrially producing monocrops, it's not the right model for a lot of the farms. Even though there's space for it in like the long plain areas where you get the flat land, most of the farmers are on farms that are small, that have slopes, that have water systems that are in their farms. So we need to help develop a more diversified kind of farming, which looks as a farm as an organism, as a habitat. So that's a farming that's more knowledge intensive, because you don't only manage one crop, you manage an array of crops, and you need to get into processing, and you need to have higher value added to what's coming out of your farm. So here in Puerto Rico, we really can't compete with the industrial farming that's coming imported at us. So we can't compete with using the same methods that the industrial agriculture from elsewhere is importing into our shores, because we're going to lose in that competition. We have everything to the mano de obra, the employment is higher. The agrochemicals that we need to import have a higher cost, so the cost will always be higher. So we need to compete in quality, and differentiate that produce from the one that's imported. So that's a big an important element or an important reason why more diversified agroecological farming is the way to go through that niche that there's a market for in Puerto Rico, and people are asking for it, and it's a healthier kind of food. So it's a lot of elements, but that's what our main focus will be.
And you're taking full advantage, as I understand it, of the nature around you. So, for example, this kind of farming involves planting plants nearby that would naturally repel certain insects,
Yes.
things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a regenerative type of farming in which you use the nature in order, you use it as an ally instead of go to war with it. So that's some to use efficiently those resources that we have all around: soil, water, organisms, and partner with them is the way to have a competitive advantage.
Very good. And you mentioned a moment ago importing of things, and I think we need to repeat here. Do you know what percentage of the current food supply is actually imported to Puerto Rico?
It's over 90%.
And so there is a component here to this global grant project just simply to teach people how to work with fresh food. Is that correct?
Yes, is how good is the fresh food, the local food, how that also help the local economy in that area. It's a more healthy food that the people can consume in the island. We also asegurar bring a safety opportunity to have food many times during the years, and do not depend that the people or other sector import food from other countries, and also that also consume local food reduce the impact of the climate change in the whole concept.
Very good. As part of this project, as it was being developed, Rotary International sent an inspector. They call them a cadre, and we toured some of the regions to be affected by this global grant project. The cadre therefore sometimes she saw farms that I would call someone's backyard. They were very, very small. And then some were several acres in size, and then some involved distribution centers where food was being gathered, farmed, and then sent to restaurants in San Juan. Is that all part of this?
Yes.
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
Sure. What I'm saying is this project involves not just farming in acres. Some of the farms are small, first-time efforts by some people, and some are much larger. Is that correct?
We have farmers that have a small area that is planting, and we have also other farming that have maybe 2 or 3 acres that are using and planting. We can work with both, and because maybe that have just a small area is very important, because bring species or something to local restaurant or local community. Also, that's important to bring a support in that area, because many of them, when you add it, then are very huge people doing the difference in the island. Then we can work with both groups, with that small and other more bigger.
And then in terms of economic recovery and development, what I was suggesting is that some of these farms will supply food to a family or to a community. In some cases, the food will end up being purchased by restaurants and stores, even in San Juan, is it?
Yes.
So the program meets the needs of the people on many different levels.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Is that fair?
In different levels. Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
one of the one of our main focus is also to help farmers open to new markets. So, but answering your previous questions, farming it's one of those human activities that depends completely on the specific conditions you have in the farm, like soil, size, location, social environment around the farm. So a strategy needs to be worked with that considers those differences between farmers. So there's not one size fits all. We need to work directly with each farm in a different way. Even though there's programs that where you can work like this same course, same workshop to all the farmers. As you get to the specifics, as you start working more with each farmer, you works different strategies for the different conditions of the farms.
Very good. Now I have to pause. I don't want to embarrass you, Salvador, but I know we've worked to develop this project. I say we, that would be the San Juan Rotary Club and the Rotary Club of St. Simon's Island, Georgia, the international partner, and then our non-Rotary partner, Para la Naturaleza. We've worked for about 18 months to put this together. But Salvador, you just arrived last week. And you were brought in to be our project manager on this project specifically. So I know those that may be watching this video would love to know a little bit about your background, what you've done before now, what brought you to this project. And so without embarrassing you, could you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, what I can say about myself is that like agriculture is my passion. And agriculture is, I think, one of the most important pillars of the economic development that Puerto Rico needs to have, and it's so important because it works with all of it touches every single component of economy, of social realities, of culture, of diet and nutrition, of environment that we need to work with in Puerto Rico in order to improve ourselves and to improve the island that we love. But my background is I've always lived in the coast, so I love the ocean, and my first contact with the environment was through the ocean. So that's how I got to love the environment. But then since I was a kid, I had or at least 10 years ago, I have my own orchard in the city, and I studied law. But even when I study law, I was involved completely on the public policy aspect of farming. So when I finished, I did a master's in ecological agriculture. So I have like that combination of policy and law, and then ecological agriculture. And then I work with the Department of Agriculture. I work with fisheries. I worked with a model forest in the central area, and last year I was working with another NGO, Mercy Corpsman, which would develop a project to support 500 farmers, among them beekeepers, fishermen, and also farmers. So I'm very excited to be working in this project, and I know we will be able to do a very, very, very good job in helping the farmers. So I don't know if that answers
That does,
questions.
and thank you. I think it's very, very exciting. So if we have total success and we're celebrating a year from now, what would you like to see? What will success be?
In this project?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope to see more farmers with very good trainer, because they will be training the trainer. I think that we can.
The farmers will then be trainers.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
in this project, I think that we have the opportunity to capacity those farmers, and those one can training another new people that beginning to grow also as a farmer in the island. I think that is one of the best successful that the project will be do. If I can learn to teach another people and also inside the school and inside of in the same communities.
And of course, that's wonderful because one of the primary Rotary goals is that this project must become sustainable. And so you're describing that perfectly.
Yeah.
And that will be exciting. Now, I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. You've not worked with Rotary before. This is a new experience, isn't
yes,
it?
Yes, it is. This is a very new experience
And
very happy experience.
And this is exciting also, I know, for the Rotarians, particularly across Puerto Rico. District 7000 has, and I'm probably going to give this number wrong, but I think it's around 33 Rotary clubs across Puerto Rico. So the fact that this project will take place in multiple regions means that there's a good opportunity to involve Rotarians across Puerto Rico. We've also talked a little bit about their Rotaract clubs that are very strong in Puerto Rico, and even some Interact club for high school level kids. So the possibilities going forward of working with Rotary are exciting, I think. Do you have any other comments or thoughts you want to share before I thank you both for this?
No, thank you, and welcome Club Rotary to the family of Para la Naturaleza. I hope to continue to do more projects like that one, and continue to working together to have a better island and better community and better people.
Thank you both so much, and I know Para la Naturaleza initially, primarily is an enormous and very sophisticated conservation trust, but I know that when the hurricanes happened, the organization pivoted immediately and did some extraordinarily incredible relief work. And then out of that, these lessons were learned. So thank you so much for what you are all doing. It's been a joy to be with you in this interview.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.